Yo, what's going on, guys? Crispy Flakes here. Welcome to Extra Crispy. So I was scrolling through YouTube looking for something to react to for you guys today. And I came across a video titled The 5 Most Overrated NBA Players of All Time by Young Mustard. So there was a picture of Kobe in the thumbnail, man. And so your boy Krusty Ketchup is about to get pissed off, man. Because Kobe is not... I gotta hear him out. I'll hear him out, man. The video's got 691 likes currently and 273 dislikes. So, you know, definitely having Kobe in the thumbnail is a bold move. Let's see what Young Mustard has to say about this, guys, and you'll see what this is all about, man. Here we go.
History.
And the other 4 players,
a plethora of great players.
Why'd you say Blake Griffin? Is he
we've
overrated?
had bench players like Robert Ory that have stole the show on some of the grandest stages in NBA
Yeah, he's hit some
history.
big shots.
And we've had icons, legends.
Gets my Pistons.
Michael Jordan, Larry Bird that have etched their name in NBA history. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 players. Some may be legends, some may not be, but they definitely had an impact on the game of basketball.
But they're overrated.
Their impact is sometimes overstated, and that can lead to them becoming overrated players. In this video, we're going to discuss 5 players that I believe are the most overrated players in NBA history.
Okay, here we go.
This video will have a lot of difference of opinion, so I just want to say this is my opinion. So if you're mad, let me know in the comment section.
Yeah, don't be dropping dislikes on people's videos because they got a different opinion, guy. Like, I mean... I guess that's what the like and dislike bar is supposed to be for, but I don't know, man. I'm somebody that's like, okay, let's have a discussion about it before we go out there and start hating on somebody. But I'm sure I'll get heated at some points in this video regardless.
Keep it respectful. I'm sure it will not be respectful, but let's at least try to do
your best.
Keep it that way. And also, I just wanted to say this before I get started with this video. Being overrated does not mean that you're trash,
100%
garbage,
true.
or I'm hating.
100%
it just
true.
means that I believe a certain player has been lifted to a level or just a place in NBA.
They might be an A tier, but we're putting them at S tier is pretty much what he's trying to say here, guys.
History that realistically speaking, they are just not on. They are just not on that level, and a lot of people need to understand.
I get what he's saying.
But without further ado, let's get on with this video.
Anytime I do a tier list.
First player.
McGee holding, looking. Here
Reggie Miller?
Top. Miller a catch. Miller a look. He hit it.
Miller killer? Oh no! Here we go. Here we go. I love Reggie Miller, man. I'm a Pistons fan.
Reggie. Now Reggie Miller,
Dumbo.
I think to a lot of fans is kind of starting to get the rep of being overrated. But when you just look at NBA history and the credit that this man has been given for a lot of things that realistically speaking is just kind of ridiculous, I think we need to point it out. For one, this guy was a great shooter, but I think when you compare him to a guy like Steph Curry, that's disrespectful.
But that's the thing. You can't make that comparison because Reggie Miller was playing this era of basketball before this era of basketball was even a thing. Like, he was juicing that 3-point shot when posting up was the wave out there, man. So it's like, if you put Reggie in this current time, where they're shooting a lot more 3-pointers and things like that, because I'm sorry, I don't know how many threes he's averaged, or like attempts he's taken like throughout his career, but let me just say, like, if he was playing right now, he'd be shooting 10 of them a game. So I used to also have that same finger band and made me a trash shooter. Although, spoiler, I already was a garbage shooter, so...
I mean, it's arguable if he's even a top 3 shooter of all time with guys like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Ray Allen. So to put him only in Steph Curry's conversation, I think it's kind of a little disrespectful.
He would shoot just as good as Klay in today's era.
Debates with people
No
that
doubt.
say, oh, don't forget about Reggie Miller and Ray Allen. No, I didn't forget about them. Steph Curry's just on another level. Reggie Miller has only led the league in 3-pointers made twice. And I think a lot of people forget that there were other shooters in that era that were just as good, if not better, than Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller has had seasons where he's barely been in the top 10 in the amount of threes made. Just look at 1994.
I think it was more the longevity type of thing.
People really need to understand that Reggie Miller's legacy is heavily helped by longevity. And if it wasn't for that, there's an argument that Reggie Miller might not have even made the Hall of Fame.
But can we also make an argument that we look at Reggie as if he was just a three-point shooter. Reggie Miller had a lot of different, like, other aspects to his game. I mean, I'm not saying he was always, like, the best, like, playmaker out there, but I'm gonna say, like, straight up, like, I know he used to be like super athletic, like attacking the basket and stuff like that. Like, to me, he was more than a three-point shooter. I've actually seen other videos. I think, like, Legend of Winning made one about Reggie Miller, arguing that he didn't really do too much out there. But I'm just saying, I think he was more than just, like, a three-point shooter. Like, he did score in other ways. That kind of made up for the era of basketball he played in, if that makes sense. Okay, we got T-Mac up next. I disagree with this 100% already, man. The injuries this man suffered, he was able to still come back and still be a good NBA player after. I cannot have Tracy McGrady on this list.
Tracy McGrady is definitely one of the more special kind of overrated players. Definitely, he was a great player in his career. Had a lot of great scoring seasons. I mean, this guy was great amazing. Moments. One of the best scorers that the league has ever seen. And definitely, injuries did hurt him towards the ending of his career.
He was that era of Derrick Rose.
A lot of people overlook the failures that a guy like T-Mac has had, whether it's blowing a 3-1 lead or just losing consistently in the first round with the Rockets. I mean, this is a guy that year after year after year could not get out of the first round, and it wasn't always his fault. But when you go back and look at a lot of series, he could have changed that. Blowing a 3-1 lead is not acceptable. What he did in Houston was not acceptable. He had Yao Ming, and in a lot of situations, Yao Ming stepped up to the plate, and Tracy McGrady just couldn't do so.
Can we almost make the argument that we give T-Mac a pass that we don't give Carmelo Anthony? And that is just being like, and I mean, like Melo did not really suffer any injuries like T-Mac, so that might be like the difference in the fan perception. But, you know, Young Mustard here, I mean, he's bringing up a good point about, you know, some of the things that T-Mac, or I'm sorry, that Melo gets roasted for. We don't really have that same thought towards Tracy McGrady. So he is bringing up a good point.
I think a lot of people need to understand that as great as Tracy McGrady was, there were a lot of moments where his team needed him to step up and lead them, and he failed to do so. I'm not going to go down each and every moment. You can do that for yourself, but this is a guy that has consistently choked and has never gotten out of the first round of the playoffs.
Bring up a good point.
And that is something that a lot of people need to understand.
Yeah, bring a San Antonio, didn't he?
This is a guy that got into the Hall of Fame over other guys that have done that. Guys like Chris Webber, guys like Chauncey Billups, guys like Ben Wallace. And I understand they may not be the player that Tracy McGrady is from a skills perspective, but at a certain point in time, winning must matter, especially if you're a part of the reason that you lost in the first place. And I think that perfectly summarizes Tracy McGrady's career.
It's a good point. I can't disagree with them. Oh, we got Vince Carter. Okay. So I can already see his philosophy for this video. He is going with guys that are looked at as just like basketball gods, extremely talented, but never really had success winning. I think that's kind of the route he's going for right there, which, like I said, there's something to be said about winning and losing in the NBA, how it affects your legacy overall. It's a big reason why people will not call LeBron James the GOAT over Michael Jordan, because yes, he's been to like the finals so many times and stuff like that, but it's the record in the end of the day that people look at. You guys like my shirt, man? I got this from Loot Crate before they went bankrupt.
I think that when you look at a guy like Vince Carter, a lot of people love him now because he's still the old guy that's hanging with the young players. But I think that when you look at Vince Carter's career as a whole, definitely was a good player and is a Hall of Famer. But when you look at the expectations that he was given at a young age, he consistently failed to meet those expectations year after year. I mean, this is a guy that when he was in Toronto was compared to Michael Jordan, which I thought was ridiculous, but only got to the playoffs twice during his time there. And then towards the ending of his time in Toronto, played poorly because, let's be honest, he quit on that team. And then he went to the Nets and was great with Jason Kidd, but when Jason Kidd left, let's be honest, he put up empty stats in New Jersey.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care about no Devin Harris.
To Orlando and was deemed the missing piece for them to push through and win a championship or at least get to the NBA Finals. But what happened? He underperformed and they still got to the Eastern Conference Finals. And not only did he underperform in the conference finals against the Celtics, but he also got outplayed by his draft class buddy in Paul Pierce. It's very clear that throughout all of Vince Carter's career, this is a guy that was given expectation after expectation and consistently underperformed time after time after time. And I don't know why a lot of people really hype up his time in Toronto. A lot of people will literally...
I like that people give like the Michael Jordan comparison, because it does kind of like go to show that, sure, athletically, skill-wise, you could be compared to Michael, because, you know, Michael was great out there, and Vince Carter obviously great scorer and stuff like that throughout his career. But to be Michael Jordan, it's more so than just, you know, being a good scorer or copying some of his moves out there. Like, Jordan's GOATness and mentality is kind of what separates him from the bunch out there. It's not just his skill.
Still to this
day, a lot of skillful basketball
players. He's the greatest Raptor of all time. That's ridiculous. He may be great from the standpoint of what he did for Toronto,
Kawhi Leonard's the best one now.
As a player, he's not greater for that organization than a guy like DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry, or even look at a guy like Kawhi Leonard for what he did in one season. One can make the argument that Kawhi's already surpassed him as a Raptor. I definitely think that when you look at Vince Carter's career, he has no excuse for the underperforming and the just bombing of all expectations, because he had the talent.
He's always had good teammates too.
He had the athleticism to do everything on the court. One of the most gifted scorers that we have ever seen in terms of how complete his game is on the offensive side of the ball, but consistently, no matter what, just failed to show up when
always great, never the best, I think is the best way to summarize his career. You know, there was always a Kobe or a LeBron out there that was always just a better player. And that's not saying Vince Carter was bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just sometimes, you know, you can be great, but you're in second place. And that's just fact of the matter.
And it mattered most. And I definitely think that is one of the most overlooked parts of Vince Carter's career, which lead me to deem him as one of the more overrated players in NBA history.
All right. Who's next? Oh, Kobe. Yeah, okay, wait, Kobe or Wade? Okay, I gotta hear Kobe though, because like Kobe, he will not convince me that Kobe's overrated. He will not convince me. He will not convince me. He will not convince me that Kobe Bryant's overrated. It's over this. I'm over it.
Now, I understand that a lot of people get mad whenever I call someone overrated, and this is what I mean by that. Like I said earlier, overrated does not mean that you're trash. It doesn't mean you're a scrub. In Kobe Bryant's case, it doesn't mean that he's not a top 10 player in NBA history, or he's not one of the greatest players that we've ever seen in the history of sports itself. I mean, he's still the second greatest shooting guard of all time, behind the greatest player ever in Michael Jordan.
Okay.
There's no debate about any of the things.
But what's overrated about him? I can't figure it out.
But to take it any step further than that, to say that he's second all time just because he has 5 rings and he's the closest to MJ, that's where you start overrating.
Oh, who's saying that?
And it may just be.
Yeah, I don't think Kobe's the second greatest player of all time. I would say he's like top 10. I mean, it depends on whose list you're looking at. And some top 10, top 15, maybe even, depending on who you're talking to. But no, there's no way I think he's the second best player of all time. You do think that you are delusional. Oh my God, there we go. There it is. There's the full screen of the freaking video every damn time, man. Every time. Okay, start the video.
Be his fans. But I have seen so many people that I just have to make a part of this video about him. He has to be on this list. When I see people say he has to be in the top 5 greatest players of all time, that's when I have to disagree. Because a guy like me doesn't even have Shaq in his top 5. I think it's definitely a little bit debatable, but I don't even have Shaq in my top 5. I can't have Kobe over Shaq.
Top five. I'm going to say Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kareem, and then that's just where it gets difficult. I don't know, man. That's my top 3. You could probably have Magic up there. Shaq maybe too. There's so many great players. Like like my top 3 is pretty much solidified at that. Like that's my top 3. You have Hakeem's name. It's just, it depends on how you're looking at it, I guess. There's no correct answer.
Am I dumb? Hell no. But there are people that legitimately believe that Kobe Bryant is better than a lot of people in the top 5. Whether it's Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Magic, even Duncan. I think Duncan over Kobe should be a universally accepted concept. But I challenge you to tweet that Tim Duncan's better than Kobe and watch all the backlash that you get.
I might actually try that.
I'm going to be real with you.
I might actually try that.
As Kobe Bryant is overrated, there is a portion of fans that do disrespect him and underrate him. So you can make a case that he's one of the more overrated players and one of the more underrated players. But when I hop online and I see these ridiculous comments about Kobe Bryant's career, I can't help but to not give my opinion on here. I gotta be honest, that's who I am. I'm Young Mustard. I'm not a hater.
I'm Krusty Ketchup. I'm a hater.
Kobe Bryant is one of the most overrated players in the history of the NBA.
Wow.
But he's not number one because that.
See, I don't think you can because I would say a sensible NBA fan has Kobe properly rated. So I don't think you can overrate guys based off of like delusional NBA fans. I think it would have to be like a universal thing. So it's so hard to use the word overrated sometimes because it's like well, who's overrating it? You know what I'm saying? Huh?
That title goes to another guy I want to talk about.
All right, better not be Luke Nerd.
At half court.
Oh. Wait, who? Oh, okay.
Open three. Hit it! John Stockton sends the Utah Jazz to the NBA Finals.
Has he done everything except win, though, pretty much for John Stockton? Number one on the list. Most overrated player. All-time leader in steals, I believe, right?
Stockton. Man. One of the most overrated guys I have ever seen.
I gotta hear why, though.
Legend, okay? One of the best passers ever. Top 10 point guard. But like I said earlier, being great, no matter how great you are, does not mean that you can't be overrated, okay? And Stockton fits that bill.
So what's he
perfectly? And what's crazy is that some of the people that overrate this guy just do it because of numbers. Stockton's numbers, when he started taking a step back in that offense in terms of scoring and all that, he was a decent 13-10 guy. And that's when the Jazz saw the most of their success. A lot of people also forget that he was never considered an elite player in the NBA. He was never considered a superstar. He was a number 2 guy, and everything supports that. I mean, this is a guy that only has one first place MVP vote throughout his entire career. But you want to say he's on the level of Steph Curry. You want to say he's on the level of Oscar Robertson.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Just because of assists and steals. Because that's usually the only argument I hear. Assist, steal.
But you also got to make the argument that assists and steals, like in that era and stuff, it's like, for a point guard, that's what you want your point guard to be doing, playing defense and getting other people involved out there. Like, we don't really know what Karl Malone would have been like without John Stockton out there, right?
What else? Because as great as Stockton was as a player, he was never able to change his game in order to help the team win.
But sometimes it's changing the game of your
situations.
Changing the game of your teammates.
I mean, just
by
look
being
at
a great
the
point
NBA
guard.
Finals. I don't believe it was the first time. I think it was the second time that they faced them in '98. But John Stockton averaged less than 10 points a game.
But look at Steve Nash. Like, Steve Nash never really had like the sexiest stat lines out there, but there was the Steve Nash effect where it's like, okay, sure, maybe Nash is not putting up the great numbers, but just the players around him were all going to see an excel in the stat sheet because of it, because of Nash. So I think that's something to be said about the point guard position.
I understand that scoring is not always his primary responsibility. That's usually Karl Malone's responsibility. But when your team needs you to step up, you gotta step up. That's pathetic. You have to be able to take on new challenges and new responsibilities, especially if you're going to be one of the top leaders of your team, which John Stockton was. And in comparison to other players throughout NBA history, they were able to do that. And they also did something else. They won a championship, which John Stockton, as great as the teams that he had at his disposal, as a number 2 guy, consistently failed in the postseason. And it wasn't just the Michael Jordan, because everyone wants to bring up Michael Jordan. What about those series against the Blazers or the series against the Supersonics? I mean, we can keep going. He was outplayed by point guards like Gary Payton, Terry Porter, Kevin Johnson, working John Stockton. So I think that when it comes to John Stockton's career, there is a lot that's overlooked just because of the numbers. And we need to stop doing that, because that leads to players becoming overrated.
He's a good player, but I would not put him on like Oscar Robertson and Stephen Curry level. Like, who's doing that?
Basketball.
Let me talk to that person.
I'm sure a lot of people have different opinion. Y'all let me know in the comment section down below.
Okay, that is the end of the video right there. I thought overall, I mean, like, he brought up some good points. I thought he was, like, respectful about it. I didn't feel like he was, like, I did not come off like he was hating this video. So I do think he brought up some good discussion points overall. And, you know, overall, man, I mean, give me your guys' thoughts, because you guys will let me know in the comment section below. But no, it was definitely a good video. I'm going to go on Twitter now and post Tim Duncan's greater than Kobe, just to see what happens.